Hey folks, Ned Canty here, General Director of Opera Memphis and Stage Director for our production of The Elixir of Love. We just finished day 7 of rehearsal, day 8 of the process. Yesterday, Sunday, was a day off for the cast, give everybody a chance to rest up a little bit. So today we worked on finishing up the staging for Act 1 without the chorus during the day, and then tonight we worked with the chorus on the Dulcamata scene for the first time. Although Dulcamata sings, most of that is an aria. There isn't. It's all about the chorus and them buying and when they buy. And we also have our shill played by Jesse Koza. So we have a lot of interaction for him to do, and he's buying bottles of elixir, wearing different costumes, and going from a sombrero and a poncho to a cowboy hat and an eye patch and whatnot to get people buying. So lots of little details to work out, make sure that they all happen at the right time, and that we're not covering up anything important musically, and everything is happening at the right moment. And then we ditched the men and worked a little bit with the women on the scene in which they find out that Nemorino has inherited a lot of money, and all of a sudden they realize how exciting and interesting and handsome and fascinating he's been all this time. And so we worked a little bit on that. It's fun. It's one of my favorite scenes musically, and it's very comic. I think somebody was saying the other day that it paints a pretty bad picture of the women in this town, that as soon as he's rich, they're all suddenly interested in him, and I think that's exacerbated by the fact that in our chorus there are some of these characters who are the wife of the mayor or whatever, who are in this and are equally excited about the idea of getting him, which I guess would involve killing their current husbands. But comic reality sometimes doesn't allow for those things. You don't want to get too deep. You don't want to think about things too much, because if you do, then they're not funny anymore, and that's you have to find this golden sweet spot. We worked on the end of Act 1 today, and everybody is against Nemorino at the end of Act 1. I mean, he's just an outcast. They're laughing at him. He's drunk. People who in the first scene were mildly sympathetic, patient, the way you might be with a cousin or a brother who is, sort of, not adding up to much and is a little irritating, but he's family, so you take care of him and you accept him. At the end of Act 1, those people have turned on Nemorino, and there is this golden bullseye that you can hit in a scene like that, where you aren't sure whether to feel bad for him or to be laughing at the absurdity of it, or to be shaking your fist at the people for being so mean to him, and that it's ideally the audience is kind of different segments or pockets are experiencing all of those things at once or in rapid succession, but you want them to leave for the intermission wanting things to get better. And of course the worse you have Nemorino falling at the end of Act 1, the further up he has to travel in Act 2, and it's good to have that room to travel. But getting back to the women, an interesting thing that we talked about, one of the most difficult things to do on stage is to have a scene, movement within a scene, especially a chorus scene or a big ensemble, to have movement appear truly random. And music is so relentlessly structured. It has logic and organization and rhythm, so much so that we can play with that logic and organization to create emotional impact in people, so that if something doesn't happen, if a note doesn't resolve, they feel physical discomfort. If something is out of tune or whatever, they feel physical discomfort. So it's a very visceral sort of thing, and very hardwired and ingrained into us. And so when people are singing, and there's rhythm, and that rhythm has a logic, and especially in pieces like an Elixir of Love, where it's a very specific logic, to have people move in a way that seems random is almost impossible. And in fact, to make it seem random, you actually have to impose a set of rules. And we were talking about this because during the section, there's a a section first where Janetta tells all the women that that Nemorino has inherited all this money, and all of them say, well, now that Nemorino's a millionaire, I remember how attractive he is. And they all sort of wander off on their own, talking to themselves during this scene. And, you know, option one would be to give each one of them an incredibly complex and specific traffic pattern that interwove in some wonderful way. That would take essentially our entire rehearsal process to make that work. The other is to let it be random. But what ends up happening is if you just say, just wander around, it never really works out. People sort of fall into patterns. They find rhythm and they find, you know, they clump the same way that often you'll find that choruses will, if they just start singing, they'll line themselves up. There's just, or they'll form themselves into an arc. There's just this kind of second nature that they have, or you know, stage instinct that puts them there. So to create the appearance of chaos on stage, you have to give them some rules. So, for instance, you know, every time you take a breath, you're going to make a 90-degree turn, and if you come within 5 feet of another woman who's singing, you have to turn down stage, and you know, you give them a little bit of that in between the different things. It seems as if it's random because the pattern is just off enough and off enough from the music visually that it creates the appearance of randomness, where, you know, actual randomness actually wouldn't be as interesting as fake randomness is, hopefully. I don't know, you tell me after you see it. Tell me if I got randomness right. There's some other pieces, notably the sextet in Don Giovanni, where I always try for that same effect, where everybody just doesn't know what the hell's going on and is sort of wandering around lost, and you want the feel of everything breaking down, but that's obviously a much more serious scene. You know, so it's always interesting trying to achieve that. So, or at least it's interesting to me. Hopefully it's interesting to you. I have no idea. But tell me. You can email me or comment on these, or go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/operamemphis and let us know what you think about these videos. Otherwise, if you haven't bought your tickets yet, still plenty of time, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for listening.